Eileen Jadd is a bereavement educator. She joins us now. Good to have you, Eileen.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
And the organization you are with is called Good Grief Bereavement. I will never forget those moments with my father in his final moments. It's a big part of the grieving process, and there are a lot of people that I don't think are even talking about it or even known who are going through this right now.
Yeah, it's a very challenging time. Aside from professionally, I also went through this personally. My mother was moved to a long-term care home in March,
hmm
and we spent 12 weeks not being able to see her as well. So I really do feel for all the people that are going through this. It's very difficult.
What does it do to the grieving process for the person who will go on living? I mean, if you're saying, your final goodbyes to your parent, it gives you some sense of closure. It never goes away, certainly, but I would have to think that not being able to spend those last moments with someone you love, it really would disrupt the grieving process.
It does make it longer. It protracts the whole process, and everything with COVID is taking longer. So it's not just not saying goodbye, but not having any of the rituals that you might have in your community. Any kind of support coming over. The numbers at funerals are much smaller than expected, and not having those systems in place makes everything take a little bit longer.
Well, because it's already a very lonely world, when someone passes and you're thrown back into a very busy world when, frankly, you just want to yell out and say, I'm not ready for this, and it takes an awfully long time, to get over it. And then when you're in a pandemic situation, it multiplies the pain exponentially.
Exactly. And we don't have the people. You can't have maybe you can have two or three people in your backyard to talk to you for a little bit. But it's not the same as having people over on a regular basis or someone taking you out because you're so sad and you're having trouble making your own meals and just coping with day to day. You can't do it in the same way during a pandemic.
What did you
So
do? I mean, were you able to see your mother?
we fortunately were able to see our mother, but she did take a turn for the worse and she passed away in August. But we did get a couple visits in. But again, our funeral arrangements, we could only have 20 people at a funeral and that kind of thing. What we ended up doing is looking for new rituals and new ways of marking the situation and remembering her. So, excuse me. So, for instance, we put together a tribute. We had no cousins that could come in town. None of her siblings, she didn't have siblings, but any cousins or any friends or family, they couldn't come in town, right, because of the pandemic. So we put together a Zoom tribute. So as much as we don't love Zoom and technology and it can't replace in-person visits, it was really helpful for us and all the other people to express their feelings and to talk about the life that was lived.
And certainly for the person passing, I mean, obviously in those last palliative days, it's hard to know if they know their child or their sister or brother is with them. But certainly, it must offer some comfort.
Yeah,
You hope.
yeah. So, yeah, we don't know how much they know. The palliative doctors that spoke to us said, they can hear you and that kind of thing. So we were trying to do that. But if you don't have that opportunity, it's going to add a layer of a different kind of layer of grieving to regular grieving. And when you were talking about closure, closure is getting back to your new normal. And it's going to take a lot longer to get to some new normal because there's so many unanswered questions.
Right. And anger builds, and I mean, grief is like a roller coaster. It's got these different phases to it. It doesn't just happen and then go away. It lasts, I think, for some people for many, many, many years. What advice and guidance are you giving to people right now who are going through this that maybe you wouldn't have been doing before?
Well, basically, you're not alone, and these are very real feelings. And if you are feeling them more intense, you may want to seek some help, and that's totally fine because it is a very difficult situation, and it's hard to deal with sometimes on your own. And you can go for individual counseling, or we have groups, support groups for people that have lost people during COVID or in other kinds of situations. Or sometimes we have a bereavement buddy program where you can match people with who've had a similar experience with informal support. So there's just different ways of reaching for support, and I think we all have to look for them. And the non-grievers who want to support their grieving family and friends have to be in touch more regularly in the ways that are available to us now.
Yeah, it seems the ultimate cruelty, though, to not allow, and I think it requires some outside the box thinking in difficult
Yes,
times.
it really does.
To remember that the mental damage and health damage you do to people by robbing them of those moments. It really truly is cruel. It's hard to believe that it's happening, but it is happening. It's sadly to a number of people I've known along the way. I appreciate your insight into this, Eileen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sorry for your loss as well.
Oh, thank you.